Yep.
Taleha.
We're live, by the way. Hey there, guys. Oh man, Anusha joined and I just had to say it. What's this? What's this? Anusha, there's some weird media output thing. I don't know how to get rid of it. Hi, Taleha. How are you doing? One second. Just getting this set up. There we go. This thing was pressing on the button. That's why the volume just kept going down. Just kept getting muted.
Okay now?
It seems to be.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Then just got so the media output is all the way at 0. Just gonna bump it up to 1. Cool. All right, we're ready. So Taleha, we're just gonna wait for a few more people to join in, and then we will begin the live. So we'll just give it a few more minutes, and then we'll get started. So you ready with the mic? It's recording already? Perfect. Okay.
When you start the live again, say hi.
No, I'm not.
Because in front of the recording, there is no...
Okay, fine. We'll see. Okay, there's already 6 people joined. Taleha, would you like to start now and then we'll wait for more people to join? Because we'll be saving this for later on, so anybody who doesn't miss the beginning can always catch it at the end. So you can just type out what you think. Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm audible. Yeah, I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, you're audible. You're perfectly audible. Can you hear me as well?
Yes, I'm able to hear you.
Perfect. Let me just get this a little sorted. Brilliant. So, Taleha, hi. Welcome to the live. It's a pleasure to have you. And let's just get started with the discussion. So,
Yeah.
you're obviously, when I was looking you up on LinkedIn and when I was trying to find some information about you, there's no shortage of titles that are out there for you. You know, IT engineer, podcaster, YouTuber, blogger, TED speaker. So there are all these titles, but I was wondering if maybe from your own perspective, you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So basically, by profession, I'm a full-time software engineer, and by passion, I'm at RJ at All India Radio. I'm a TEDx speaker, and I've been podcasting since 2012, and I love to create content. That's why I also have a YouTube channel and a blog. So that's pretty much about me.
Okay. And so also when I was looking you up on LinkedIn, I noticed in your kind of education background, I noticed just it was like IT, computers, computers, computers. So I was
Yeah.
just wondering because, we kind of grew up in the time where computers were just starting to kind of come into India. So I was just wondering what your relationship with computers was like, in the early days in childhood. Was it something like you immediately got passionate about when you got your hands on one?
Yeah, so I think since my childhood days, I always was very intrigued and interested about technology. And I did not have cable connection at home, but I did have Doordarshan. There used to come a show which was only about technology news on Sundays. I always used to watch that and discuss with my father. And then even when I used to read the news or follow any updates, I always was intrigued to read about what's latest in technology. So I was sure that I wanted to, be on the other side of the computer as a programmer. And I also took computer science when I was in my plus two. So I had PCM with computer science, and from there the interest kept on going. I had it in my bachelor's, I had it in my master's, and now
Right.
it's of course my profession. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I remember as a kid, the computers was kind of everybody was kind of telling you you have to get into computers. Computers is where, the money is, and it's where the industry is going and everything. And I remember as a kid, I was doing like app tech classes, and I got a computer, and then it was just learning how to use everything. And what was fascinating was how, because I took computer classes in outside India, where computers were more commonplace. And then it was fascinating to see how, in a country where computers were just starting to come in and computer education was just starting to come in, it was such a difference in how the basis they expected you to have. So, so it's great to see how far we have come since then.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you just said how you were so passionate about computers so early on in your career and through the Doordarshan with where you talked about it with your father and everything. I find it so great when someone talks about how they found their passion so early in their life. And so, for so many of us, finding a passion is so difficult because we're always kind of told, you have time to figure out what you want, or you kind of bounce around different things, or you try to go for things that other people tell you you should go for.
Right.
So, if you had to give advice to someone on trying to find their passion at an early stage of their life, or for example, for let's say a parent who has a young child who they're now having to raise, what advice would you give them about encouraging passion for children and how to get them into that space of in trying to get kids to follow their passion instead of trying to basically live vicariously through them?
So, one thing I would definitely say is that passion should never be dictated by what your peers are taking, what your peers are following, or something which is trending. It should definitely come from within. So, if you're not very sure about it, I would say that on a piece of paper, just write down three, four areas which are very keen always to know about. Let's say it is a computer science, it is, let's say, travel, it is, let's say, photography. Then out of that, try to spend at least few hours every day and try to see if you're really interested, or do you get bored, or is it just because other people were pursuing it, you found it very trending, or you've thought that a lot of people are earning out of it, that's why you want to get into it. So you'll find your answer, but please don't go what your parents tell you that, just go for it, or don't go because your friends are pursuing it, because that is not going to be a great decision. Obviously, until you are in college, maybe you will try to pass with good numbers. But when it comes to, professional work, whatever you have been taught in school and college is never the same. It's absolutely different. And if you're not passionate about your field, you would really not enjoy your work. And over there, nobody is going to understand that they are obviously going to fire you, and they will only pay you for your work. So it's very important to decide it very carefully that after 5 years, after 10 years, would you be eager, if you want to become a programmer, to sit behind the computer and write different piece of code? Also, like when you're in a field of technology, you always have to be on your toes. So
Right.
you always have to be up to date with technology. Today, if, let's say I'm learning a particular language, after, few weeks only, some new thing will come in the language, or a new language in itself will come, and people from your office, your clientele, everyone would expect that, you start learning that. So if you're not that passionate enough, so it will be very, very difficult. And so it's very, very important for you to choose a field of passion rather than out of peer pressure, out of society pressure, or any other factor.
Yeah, and I hope everybody who is listening will take that advice and really kind of use it for the future, because I think that's such brilliant stuff that you just said, and I agree wholeheartedly with it. But let's shift gears now for a second and move into the more of the podcasting, since that is what we're here to talk about. So you started in radio, and you did Radio Mirchi, and we've worked with a couple of radio personalities before, and there seems to be almost this assumption that if you want to be good at podcasting, you need to have some basis in radio, or radio people take to podcasting like a duck to water. How true would you say that assumption is?
So I actually want to correct one thing. So I started with podcasting only,
Okay.
and then I shifted to radio. And when I started podcasting in 2012, I did not even know it is called podcasting. I started it because I was into IT, and I always, like, that was my other passion. I always kept on thinking about I have to be on the other side of radio, on the other side of radio. But due to my long work hours, and of course, because I did not have a degree into mass communication or radio, it was quite tough for me, to get into radio. So I thought that, okay, what I'll do, I'll start my own radio show because I heard few on SoundCloud. And as I said, I did not know they were actually called podcasts. And I started it along with some people from my office. I used to take interviews of people who have some passion outside their profession. They want to pursue it full time. So I started taking interviews, talking to people from my office. It gradually started getting bigger. And then I got a radio opportunity through an online radio channel. And I started, podcasting also alongside with that radio channel. And from there, I got TEDx, other opportunities. So it kept on growing. But since I have had experience of radio, from online radio to offline radio to, different fields of, in different ways of podcasting, from my experience I would say that as much liberating as podcasting is, radio is not, because at the end of the day it's obviously like you're an employee of the radio channel. So it's not like as people perceive it, that today I'm thinking, to talk about ice cream, I'll go to the studio, I'll play some favorite tracks, and I'll just talk about ice cream. That's not the case. In fact, like I'm working at All India Radio, and it's a government channel, and there are so many restrictions out there. And every minute, every second is so calculated. You also have ads, and even the songs out here at All India Radio, you don't just play it like that. They are actually given to you after a lot of scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of things are there. So it's not liberating. You have a time limitation. You cannot have a guest of your own. So everything is sort of dictated by, the management. But when it comes to podcasting, you are your own boss. There is no time restriction. I agree that when it comes to music, it's more of like you have to play copyright-free music. But then apart from that, all the talking is just in your hands. You are your own boss, and nobody is going to come and say that, no, you cannot talk this, or you have to put an ad over here, etc. So it's very, very liberating. And even if you're not from a radio background, it does not matter. What matters in podcasting is that you should, of course, number one, be passionate about talking. It's not even necessary like people perceive it that, every podcaster should only have an interview-based format, or it should only be in a particular language, like it should only be in English, or it should only be in Hindi. It could even be like a mix of the two. It could even be a regional language. But it all has to come down upon your comfort level. If you don't feel like, you are comfortable with interviews, you want to have a solo podcast, great, you can go ahead with it. If you want a combination of the formats, that's also good. So the best part is it's so liberating that it's all in your hands. Nobody's going to come and tell you that do this, do that. You are your own boss, and I absolutely love the fact about that when it comes to podcasting as compared to radio.
And I feel like in many ways that's kind of why podcasting took off in the way it did, because of that freedom that you mentioned, and people kind of felt like podcasting gave them that avenue to be more creative, and it gave them, considering radio kind of felt like this very rarefied atmosphere. It felt like anybody could go and make a podcast. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic how that has all evolved. But I just want to pick on something that you said during your answer, which was that through your podcasting, through your radio, you got into TEDx. Now, I'm a huge fan
Yes.
of the TED Talks and everything like that, and I have just been so thoroughly curious about the whole process of uh, getting to deliver a speech at TED. So I was just curious, and this is not part of the whole this is just me wanting to know from someone who's been there. What is that whole process like of getting to talk at TED?
Okay, so like a lot of people obviously ask me, how did I get that opportunity? Did I reach out to anyone or did they reach out to me? So again, when TED happened, I was not even much aware that it's such a huge thing. So what happened was that people from one of the college committees were listening to my podcast, and that podcast was really getting good numbers, and people used to listen from different, not only different parts of the country, but different parts of the world. Even from my office, people were listening and they were, sharing it with their friends. So that's how someone from one of the TEDx committees in a college heard and they reached out to me. And they really liked the concept because a lot of people confessed on my show that they had some profession, like XYZ profession, but when they heard my show, they felt that once in a life they should definitely give the passion also a shot. Maybe it works and becomes like a passion. So because of such stories, a lot of people, tuned in. And after this, I got this TEDx opportunity, and um, it was really great. But at the same time, since it was my first TEDx, and only after I got that opportunity, I got to know that it is such a great platform, and all the speakers who came, they were already so very famous. I think I was the only noob one. I was the only not so famous person. And so it was very scary for me, but and I was also the debut speaker that day who had to speak. So as soon as I went on stage, there was some power cut. Of course, in my life, if there is no technical glitch, it's not possible that I'm a software engineer. I always have technical glitch, and I always am mentally prepared that something will definitely happen. And that day also the same happened, and it made me even more fearful. So, but I started my conversation in the same way with all my fears, and then I, narrated my journey, etc. So the whole event was really great, and I met all the famous people. Which, of course, even though I was a speaker, I was so shy to, talk to
Right.
them or even have lunch with them. But then eventually it all became so nice because after my talk, everybody stood up. They gave me a huge round of applause. When I came down the stage, everyone was like, "Can we talk to you? Can you give your autograph?" And I was like, "Autograph, please. I am just a, normal employee working in an office. I'm not a celebrity." And also, it has been really great. And ever since then, I've been very grateful to all the events I have spoken both in India and internationally. And it's all happened because of podcasting.
Yeah, that's such a great story because, and that's honestly what I love about TED as well, is that it's not just these super, super famous people. It's all about the talent. It's all about, if you have something valuable to say, it doesn't matter where you come from. And I just love that whole aspect about TED. And I loved your talk as well, about the necessity of dreams in your career. It was a great talk.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
so with the at the TED, so you obviously someone from the committee reached out to you. Did
Yes.
they kind of tell you that you could come up with your own topic or your own speech?
So actually, they had a theme, and fortunately, the theme was around dreams only. But of course, we have to give some kind of brief. But right now, in the current scenario, is what I hear that people are called at least a month before, and every week there are rehearsals. So I think everything right now is completely polished. But the time I gave, which is back then in 2015, 2016, at that time, we just had to give a brief. That brief was sent to the, higher authority, and only after the TED approval, the speakers were finalized. So it was not like if somebody has reached out to you, would show short be a speaker. But yeah, that was all what had happened. I didn't have to, give the entire speech. I just had to give some brief points, and yes, it should be pertaining to the theme of the event, which of course it was dreams.
Great. So, coming back to the speaking on podcasting, so you have obviously been doing it for a very long time, and it is something that I would say it seems that you're also incredibly passionate about, along with technology. So, w- since you started out at a time when the term podcast wasn't even really that popular yet, in fact, I
Yeah,
remember in one of these conversations, I found out that the term podcast was actually used for the first time, I think, in 2009 or 2006 or something.
yeah.
And so, I found that such a fascinating thing. But what was really when you started out, what was the setup that you had, I guess, going forward? Because the radio thing came after, and a lot of
Yeah.
people that we sort of talk to in our line of work, many of them, they talk about how they don't have access to, the kind of microphones, for example, that we have, or, the
Yeah.
high-end equipment. So at a time where the medium itself hadn't really been invented, if you want to call it that, what was the whole experience like in the early days?
So if I have to talk about setup, I had a very, what should I say, age-old setup. I wouldn't even call it a setup. So I had this very old tape recorder at home in which I used to
Wow.
put the audio cassettes. And since I was still in the internship, I was not paid and all. So I used to save my pocket money from, not eating something out or, probably saving by walking more. And with that pocket money, I used to have some amount which I used to take to a person who had this shop, very small shop, where he used to convert audio cassettes to CDs, to DVDs, to MP3
Wow.
formats. So I used to talk to him and say that, see, I used to, like record in a batch, like batch processing, what we call today. And I used to go to him, see, I have 10, 10, what should I say, tracks which you have to convert. So could you just, give me a price for 8 or 7 like that? So after doing that Jugaad deal and I used to get it converted, then I used to go to a cyber cafe and from there I used to upload it on SoundCloud. And editing was also very, very tough, I would say, because since I did not have any way to put background music, when I used to speak, I used to put a background music alongside and used to put it up and down, just like radio presenters do. And I
Right.
used to put it everything in queue so that I don't have to struggle. So that is how I actually did live editing only and uploading and all. And
Wow.
from there, when I got my first salary, I got Nokia 1100, which had a sound recorder. And again, I did the same thing. I used to record, and I used to ask that same person to, give that in a CD and then upload it from a cyber cafe. Now, of course, I do have a mic, I do have a laptop and all, but this is how I pretty much started, and I did this for about 2, 3 years. And then also I kept on going with the mobile. And so I think I've grown with every digital invention in my
Right.
podcasting. I can say that. Yeah.
Wow. When you mentioned Nokia, I just had like such a big kind of flashback because it feels so long
Yeah.
ago. And then all the
Yeah.
cyber cafe and tape recorders. It feels like a completely different time period, as even though it wasn't that
Yeah.
long ago. It's so scary. And also a lot of our listeners are all commenting things like, "Wow, so great, so inspiring." That is such an incredible story, and it's so great that you've kind of grown and evolved like that. I don't think any of the podcasters I've talked to had that kind of evolution this year.
Yeah.
So so obviously, you've been podcasting for a very long time, and you've grown with the technology, you've grown with the as the medium itself has grown. And obviously, then these past 2 years, 3 years, there was the mother of all catastrophes, which was the lockdown. So
Yeah.
and a lot of people obviously try to capitalize on the time that they had to be more creative. Many of them even started podcasts of their own. But I found that people who already started podcasts, they were affected in a completely different way, which was that they felt kind of that the productivity that they had kind of went down a little bit. So how did lockdown affect you in terms of how you were going about your podcast?
So before the lockdown, since I was part of All India Radio, my whole week was like Monday to Friday, I was going to office, and on Saturday, Sunday, I was having a radio show. So I was not giving much time for podcasting. And then when the lockdown happened, so my radio listeners reached out to me through Facebook and they said that you will definitely come on air, right? So now we have more time, we can listen to you. And I said, no, because of the COVID norms and all, that is not going to happen. Only the news services division of All India Radio will be going on air and not the live shows.
Right.
But I was just thinking that it's so very tough to get your listeners, not only on social media, but also on radio. I did not want to disappoint them. So I started a new podcast, and that was called Tales by RJ Talz. I started in the March of 2020, and I used to put out my experiences and everybody else's experiences of how they are unlocking the lockdown. It was like a 10 minutes episode, but daily episode.
Right.
So I remember that after 10 to 15 episodes, I had such a good listenership, and that was very surprising because it was a very simple format. And I was just thinking that who is going to, even follow all these tips. But people not only reach out to me talking about how it helped them, but a lot of people reach out to me saying that they also started podcasting after getting inspired from my podcast.
That's
And
amazing.
then when I completed the first month of my podcast, when I completed 30 episodes, so there were about 12 podcasters who started their podcast after listening to the podcast, and we all did a show together. And that has been the most wonderful memory of me into podcasting. So that has been something which has been a breakthrough. And since then, I've never looked back. And last year, I started another podcast. And this year, I'm working on 3 new concepts of podcasts. So hopefully, by the end of the year, I'll have 5 live podcasts going on simultaneously.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think now when you said 5, because I think the record for our company is we have one podcaster, Mary Anthony, who was on this show as well. Her record was 4. So I think you've got everyone in our library beat right now with 5. But that is impressive that you can juggle all these different shows and all these different concepts. And actually, one of our listeners, Anurag, asked a question, which I think I can kind of try and work into this, which is, with all these different ideas and shows and concepts, and obviously the fact that you're a full-time software engineer, how do you get the time to manage all of this and keep it at a level that you are satisfied with?
So, to be honest, I never get satisfied because every time I put on something or I plan something, the next few days are always like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, he did this or she did that, maybe let's experiment. So I'm never satisfied, to be honest. But when it comes to following this, I think I am so passionate about it. It's just like, I can say that मैं podcasting की दीवानी हूँ, or I can say that I am in love with it, that if I don't spend at least half an hour every day on the passion, even though I'm so tired after my work, but even if I don't do it, be it in the form of planning or be it in the form of, reaching out to people who I want to be as potential guests on my show, or be it in the form of editing, if I don't do anything about my podcast any day, I'm not able to sleep. If at all I'm tired, I sleep. It comes to me in my sleep only, in my dream, as a ghost that, I did not do anything. I immediately wake up and then do it. So I think that only comes because I'm very, very passionate about it. And I feel if you're passionate about something, you will end up finding time and you will definitely do it because it will make you happy. So I think just like every day we eat, we sleep and all, it has become a part and parcel of my life. And I think whatever I do, this is not going to stop for sure.
Great. And I think everybody who's listening will be very happy to hear that you're not going to stop and you're going to keep going, because all the compliments that have been coming in, I've been reading them. It's all like, she's so creative, she's so passionate, she's so driven. So I think everybody's going to be very happy to see where you go from here. So we know a little bit now about where you plan to go with the 5 shows and what you're developing. But let's talk a little bit bigger picture. So, where do you think the podcasting industry is going? Because you've been there since, I guess, even before the start, since before
Yeah.
podcasting took off. Where do you think podcasting is going to go in India? And do you think there are exciting things on the horizon?
For sure it will, because I see, like, even if I take the example of Spotify and Anchor, so I see that they are coming up with so many cohorts and events every now and then. Like we had one which was with the India Film Project. We are, like, I'm also part of Voice of Anchor right now, which is again a cohort. Then I also see Hubhopper, which is again another podcasting platform coming up with so many things. I also saw that HT Smartcast had launched some kind of, pragmatic ad kind of setup also. So I'm pretty sure that so many new things are definitely going to come up. And I know a lot of people come to me and they always compare it with YouTube. Like they say that, I have created 10 episodes and I have 100 listens, but it's not yet monetized. But if I was on YouTube, I would definitely get monetization. But then I reach out to them and say that, see, even around 5, 6 years before, YouTube was also in a very nascent stage. And
Right.
when somebody was doing it full time, people used to make fun of them. But then when the creators consistently started putting out content, and brands also saw an opportunity, is when now the things are totally different. And I'm pretty sure that's also going to happen in terms of podcasting as well, because as we see in the West, it's already established. There's so many advertisements, there's so many brands. The same thing is also going to happen, because I see that Spotify also right now has so many ads. I see almost every platform has some kind of ad model, which is of course now integrated while you're using the app or while you're listening to the songs. But as more and more consumption of podcasting will increase, as more and more consistency and good quality podcasts will start to come up, I'm pretty sure that it's also going to rise. And in fact, I would say do not wait that one day when this will become so huge and monetization will start and people will become, huge influencers. Only then you will start podcasting. I would say that keep on doing. And even if a platform is not providing any kind of monetization, you're still free, because you're your own boss. You're still free to reach out to the particular brands from your genre. You can at least reach out to them. Even if they say no, you can at least reach out to them and you have some kind of collaboration. Let's say even if you start with barter right now, at least you would be there in their minds. They would know that such a kind of, collaboration can also happen. But for sure, it will never happen if you just sit, and think that, someday when a platform will start, only then it will become huge. It will only become huge with everyone being consistent, putting out good quality content and reaching out to brands on their own. And when this thing will become huge, it will definitely be something next level for sure. So this is how currently I'm envisioning for at least a 2, 3 years. And probably after that, it will become very huge. We'll have probably, agencies having influencers who are podcasters, and definitely it will be very huge is what I visualize.
I wish I can take what you just said, all of it, and just kind of record it so that whenever someone comes to us and says, I'm looking for monetization, I'm looking for this, that, and the other, I can just show them what you're saying. I'm like, listen to the expert here. She knows what she's talking about here. But I think
Yeah,
you're so right, because it's really people are looking for monetization. I think it's so important to get in at the ground level. And this is
yeah,
where I kind of am going to do a little bit of a shameless manicpod plug here. But even with us, we have our free website and app. We have free distribution. We've even started micropods, which is like micro podcasting, which we think is going to
yeah,
be a new interesting thing. And also, we are developing this show as well called Podcast Roulette, because as you were talking about how you did that show with all the people who were inspired by you during lockdown, I couldn't
yeah,
help but think of this show, because basically the concept is we bring 4 people in and we give them a bunch of random topics and let them carry on a conversation amongst themselves as a way to teach them the art of podcasting. So it was, as you were talking, I was just like, this is fantastic. So, Taleha, thank you so much for coming on to the Friday chats. It was so great to listen to you, and I can tell that obviously a lot of people are resonating with what you are saying. And I'm so happy that, two of your podcasts are on the manicpod platform. I cannot wait for the other five. And
Yeah.
just thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Same here, and thank you so much for having me. And I obviously really love manicpod, and the micropod is something which I really want to try. And I'm sure that everyone here should try because micropod is something which would be so easy and a good way of practicing for a bigger podcast. And only manicpod has that, so definitely go and check that out.
Thank you so much, Taleha. Thank you. It was such an honor. Thank you. So we'll end the conversation here. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye.